Hi guys, welcome to another episode on Troubles Restoration. In this episode, we've got quite a big to-do list. Things on the to-do list include getting the door lock off that door that I couldn't get off the other day. I'm going to be taking the window wiper motor out from underneath the dash, and then also getting the headlining out and supposedly getting myself under the bonnet or trouble and stripping all of that out. It's quite a lot. Let me know in the comments how much of that you think I'm going to get done. But anyway, let's get into it. It's day 7, maybe day 8. I'm maybe losing count. I think it's either 7 or 8. Today I'm back to try and get the better of this guy. You would have seen me and my dad were stripping it down a few days ago and then got stuck trying to get out one of the screws that held on the lock mechanism. We soaked it with WD-40 overnight to see if we could then get it undone. And unfortunately, despite our best efforts with soaking it and a screwdriver, we can't get it undone. So my dad's been shopping. He's gone and bought an impact driver. This thing's pretty cool. It's basically a screwdriver that works when you hit it. So you'd put this in the screw, you smack it with a hammer, and as you hit it with a hammer, it rotates. So the important thing is to have it on the right setting. So the last thing you want to do is actually tighten the thing back up. So yeah, hopefully with this, we're going to be getting this door finished. I'll be getting the better of it today. It won't be defeating me again. Once the door is stripped, we're then going to be finally taking out the headlining of the car. I'm then going to be taking out the wiper motor from underneath the dash now that the dash is stripped, and then I'll be burying myself under the bonnet, clearing that out. So let's go. Not wasting any time to get my to-do list done, I started with my first job, the door lock. To give the impact driver some chance of success, I first gave the stubborn screw a bit of a smack with the brass drift. The idea behind this was just to shock it and hopefully release the stiction. I then got the impact driver on it. Whether my initial smacking actually did anything, I don't really know, but the impact driver did the job. I think it's... What you can't see here, because my elbow is nicely in the way, is me undoing the screw.
Is it coming? Okay, is that it?
Go again, but with this one.
Okay, that's good. My garage floor's getting dirty.
As you can see, my dad is very protective over his garage floor. But anyway, at his garage floor's expense, I managed to get the last door lock screw out and the lock off the door.
Hold on. And this is the key to it all.
What you couldn't actually see in this video was my dad holding this huge lump of steel behind the screw I was hitting the impact driver against. This is key to make sure an impact driver actually works. You've got to have some kind of reaction force against the impact driver. On to the next job. I know I said I was going to move on to taking the windscreen wiper motor out once I'd removed the door lock, but I got a little bit distracted with what my mum was doing. She was scraping the bitumen mat off the floor, and the way it was just peeling off and kind of like chipping off looked quite satisfying, so I wanted to get stuck in too. Like I said in my previous video, this stuff is all over trouble. Its purpose is to stop sheet metal panels from drumming and making an irritating noise while driving. It does this by making the metal heavier, which helps to stop it from vibrating and making so much noise. It does add a lot of weight to the car, but unless you're going to race your car, you're probably going to want to put it back in. Even though I want travel to be as fast as possible, I'm definitely going to be putting it back in. But I have been eyeing up some pretty cool lightweight stuff, so we'll just have to see what my budget allows. While me and my mum were scraping away at the floor, my dad was trying to get a better look at the condition of Trouble's rear end. This was both comforting and concerning.
Look at this, guys.
Yeah, that radius, I thought I was going to need new ones. That looks good to go.
It's sealing.
Huh? That is amazing.
This looks all right. Look, this. See here, this seam here,
Yeah.
and the other side of that, I think will be okay. But the problem we've got is this seam here.
Okay, well,
But that is something that we can sort.
It's all
And then
fixable.
this corner is a bit of a mess, but.
Not if you don't look at it.
And, oh, there's a mouse. Look, I found a nest.
There's a nest.
Are you a bit sweaty, Loz?
Oh.
Okay, we don't need
Hey, what? This is for the subscribers only.
we don't need to see down there, Loz. Time for a cup of tea.
Yes, please. Once I'd finished cooling off and I'd also finished scraping the easy bits off the floor, I left my mum to finish scraping the more stubborn bits off. I then moved on to scraping the rear bulkhead. This looked like it was going to be good fun. It was a really big piece of sound deadening mat. It looked like it was in great condition, and I thought for some reason it was going to be easy. Well, it wasn't. I was getting nowhere with the scraper, so I got an old chisel to see if that would work better. Luckily it did. The smaller nose on the chisel gave me more contact pressure, and it did the job. There are loads of different approaches to removing this stuff. We just scraped it off using filler scrapers, but stiff ones. Floppy ones just seem to bend and break. But I had lots of recommendations, including trying to heat it with a hot air gun, using dry ice, sanding it off, and my favourite is to use a pneumatic scraper. I'll definitely be looking into this for the next project. If you look closely here, you can actually see some of Trouble's original slate grey colour, which is pretty cool. This bit of paint probably hasn't seen daylight since it was covered in this horrible mat in the factory. Part of me wanted to kind of keep it and not scrape it, but in the process of removing this mat, it actually got quite scratched up, so I decided just to take the rest of it off. Once I'd finished scraping the rear bulkhead, and you'd be pleased to know I actually finished all of it, even the hard bits. My hands were absolutely covered in blisters, but I was finally ready to start on taking the windscreen wiper motor out. We're finally back on track, and we've finished scraping the floor and the rear bulkhead, so that's 2 more things I can add to my to-do list and tick off. Okay, so I thought taking the window wiper motor out from under the dash was going to be another quick and easy job, but just like a lot of other jobs on this car, I was wrong. My initial thinking was that all I'd have to do is undo this nut on each wiper spindle, take the nut off, take that little black rubber grommet off, and then my window wiper assembly would just drop through or drop downwards, and those little spindles would drop down through the dash, and I'd be able to take the whole assembly out. I thought that's what would happen. It didn't. There's a few things I think I need to undo under there.
Sorry?
I think I need to undo some stuff under there.
There's something bolting it up into the car.
As usual, my dad was right. It turned out that there are actually 4 bolts holding the wiper assembly plate up under the dash. I really should have got a workshop manual, or at least this parts book with all these exploded diagrams a lot sooner. It would have saved me a lot of headaches. Here are the 4, well 3 bolts, one of them's hid behind the motor, that were holding this assembly plate in. One on the top left, one top right, and the one I'm pointing at now. Before I took these bolts out, I decided to disconnect the bullet connectors which were powering the wiper motor first. In theory, these should have just pulled out, but I'm starting to learn that theory and practice are 2 very different things. I couldn't just pull these bullet connectors out. Either they were just very, very tight, or they'd kind of corroded over time. Jeez. Okay, any suggestions? My dad couldn't quite understand what I was struggling with, so he decided to have a go. As you can see, the bullets were a mixture of very tight, and the male connection wasn't actually connected very well. All of the bullet heads just pulled off the wires. This is a bit of a pain, but at least I didn't have to get the wire snips out. With the bullet connectors finally removed and the wires out the way, I now had much better access to the bolt heads and could start undoing these. This footwell's not very comfortable. But it's very clean. Have a look at the footwell. Look at that.
We're going to weigh these sacks of bitumen. I think we've reduced the weight of this car by about 200 kilos.
It's the lightest Super 90 in there.
Do you need a socket instead of an opening display?
Made my own socket. Upside down spanner. So what I'm gonna need though is a screwdriver.
What sort?
Flathead. So yeah, once I'd persevered with my makeshift spanner, I really should have got my dad just go get me a socket. But anyway, I did persevere and I got the 4 bolts undone. But strangely, the wiper motor assembly didn't then just drop down and land in my face. I was ready to catch it to save my teeth, but this didn't happen. In my mind, I thought it must be because those little rubber things that were over the wiper motor spindles were holding it in place. So I started to remove those, but once I'd finally got both of them off, the assembly still didn't want to drop down. What I hadn't realised was that the connecting rods that transfer the motor drive to each motor spindle, parts number 13 and 14 circled in red in this picture, they went over the top of the part of the dashboard that the wiper assembly plate was bolted to. So to get the motor assembly out, I needed to first disconnect these connecting rods, but to do this, I had to actually be able to get to the ends of them, and the glove box was in the way. So out it came. This was another thing that wasn't on my to-do list that I then added to my to-do list and got done.
What have you
Put the
found?
screws back in it.
Once I could get to the ends of the control rods, they were pretty easy to pop off. All we had to do was get a flathead screwdriver between the ball and socket joint and pop them off.
Yeah. Whoa.
Nice.
Oh, look at that. Perfect.
And now this one.
That's it. Wunderbar.
With the control rods off, I could now finally get the wiper motor out from under the dash. But in all my excitement, I forgot to film it. Once the wiper motor was out, naturally I didn't then go to the next thing in my to-do list. Instead, I just added another thing. I thought it would be good to take the window wiper squirters off.
You getting on?
Just fighting with a hose pipe. Hose. So brass fitting. I think that might be blocked. Once I managed to remove what was left of the perished hose on the bottom of these little squirters, these are actually pretty easy to remove. All I had to do was just undo a little clamping nut that was clamping the squirter to the dash scuttle. This was a nut, but it was finger tight, so I could just undo it with my fingers. Once the nut was off, the squirter pulled out at the dash. I then reassembled the squirters, ready for cataloguing.
What are you doing, Ross?
Cataloguing, so I can remember where everything is and hopefully where everything goes.
Has it been a tough day?
Does it look like it?
What day are we on the actual restoration?
So I think we're on day 7. It's 7 or 8. I will confirm that. But yeah, either 7 or 8. Today we've been fighting with a lot of tar, bitumen. The floors are done. Basically all of the bitumen's off the inside of the car. And I've got my window wiper motor out. Didn't quite get the headlining out once again. It will come out eventually. And I didn't get under the bonnet, but there is always tomorrow. That's the end of day 8. I did and I didn't do very well with my to-do list. So the headlining's still in and I didn't get under the bonnet, but I did manage to add quite a few other things to my to-do list. We also successfully scraped the floor and the rear bulkhead, and we also got the glove box out. So I can't really complain. I got of the original, 4 things, I ended up doing, I think 6. So I'm pretty happy. I hope you enjoyed watching this episode, and if you'd like to continue following Travel's journey back to the road, don't forget to subscribe. See you next week.